Right, I got the stove out in the backyard here, and just some scrap sticks and that sort of thing that were laying around. Now, since I don't have a false floor in the stove yet, I lined the bottom of the stove with just some about 1 to 2 inch twigs to try to protect it, so it doesn't get a big, massive burn spot on the bottom. And then loaded it up with a bunch of wood and a little bit of newspaper, and we'll just get her going here. It's about 32 degrees, just about freezing Fahrenheit here where I'm at while I'm lighting up this stove. Now I want to burn this stove as hot as possible, so I'm stuffing in a bunch of cardboard on this burn and trash and just paper trash, that sort of thing. And right here you can see the draw is just incredible, and it just barely got the stove fired up. So far the baffle positioning and design is looking promising. I notice that the top is starting to warp pretty drastically as it starts to heat up just right up on the top there where the edge of that baffle is. I mean, I figured that would end up creating the hot spot for the stove, is right at the end of that baffle where the flame comes up around it there, as you can see. I did not expect it to warp as bad as it was starting to warp. Toss in a little more cardboard here. You can start to see the hottest part of the stove on top there where the galvanization is burning off. There's another good look at the baffle action going on there. The flames are just curling around the front end of that baffle. Now I was a little bit concerned about the baffle, thinking it may force smoke out the front of the stove, but you get a little puff here and there, but so far I think it's working out well. Here's a good look on the left hand side of the picture, a little steel loop I made for the sliding handle. And we got just a little bit of burn off of the galvanization on the lower piece of the stove. These sections are 2 foot long pieces that I'm using on it right now. Here's another good angle on that baffle. If I close that door slightly or even all the way, it really starts to howl as it tries to suck air through that intake hole, and you can see I've got it wide open, but it's just like blowing on the flames. It's amazing how well it's working. So far so good. That sticker's starting to burn off that piece of sheet metal there on the front. Getting just a little bit of heat on the side. There's a pretty good low spot in the top of the stove there where it's heated up and in the center, and not so much on the edges. Little smoke at this point. There's a good look in the intake hole. At this point, I'm really starting to wonder if the thickness of the metal is going to be sufficient for this type of a stove. And I still really don't know for sure. I mean, I expected it to warp some. I did measure this sheet metal with a set of calipers, and I came up with 27 gauge, which is pretty darn thin. It makes it easy to work with for bending. Now I just put a bunch of new sticks in there and close the door, and you can see and hear this thing puffing and chugging. It's just trying to suck air. But once it kind of gets heated up a little bit and gets a good draft going, that puffing goes away. Now if I was going to do that in real life inside a tent, once I stuff it full of a bunch of fresh wood, I think what I need to do is close the door but not latch it. Just close it almost all the way until that wood catches fire and gets a good draft, and then I could probably close the door. Maybe I'll test that out on the next one. You can see the draft suck that burnt sticker right through that hole. I could put it just like this. There's another little slow motion shot of the flames coming up and around that baffle. Perfect. I mean, it's just heating up the top just as I planned it to. There, it's got a pretty good amount of smoke, but look at the draft. The draft on this stove is working out really, really good. Much better than I had anticipated. But look at the angle of the pipe, because the top of the stove is caved a little bit just from the warpage. I'm going to do a few modifications and try to make this stove work since I've got this much time invested in it. I don't have a lot of money, but I do have some time involved in it. So I'm going to put a little bit more work into it. I'll do another video here coming out soon of the modifications that I plan to do to it. And then we'll do another burn, the second burn, and see if the modifications make a difference in the warpage on the top of the stove there. That's my biggest concern, especially when I have a big pan, or in this case like a tea kettle full of water on top of it. I think with those wood lining the bottom of the stove, the heat isn't getting down to the bottom. A little bit in the back here of the heat up toward the exhaust, but again, not at the bottom. I expect it'll take several burns to get the galvanization off lower on the stove there. Almost the first 2-foot section of pipe is cleared up. Still got a ways to go on the rest of them. Now I only have 3 sections, so that's 6 foot of stovepipe on the stove right now. I'll probably have about 8 feet and 4 sections when I actually have it connected inside the tent. So theoretically it'll probably have better draw than what it does in this video here. Stuff a bunch more wood in here and just keep burning this thing off. I got a pretty good stack of these just little scrap sticks and stuff, so you can really hear the draft pulling the air through the intake hole there. Pretty amazing. I really like this design. It was fun to build. Let's hope I can get it set up to where it'll work. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you like this sort of thing. I'll be doing several other videos on this stove here. And we'll see you guys on the next video.